Okay, this breaking news, as you've been seeing unfolding on your TV screen. This is a shooting situation in New York City. This happened at 345 Park Avenue. This is a corporate building which houses massive conglomerates like Blackstone, KPMG and JP There was an individual seen carrying a rifle through Rockefeller Square, which is right near this building. It was said that he was wearing a button-down shirt, a blazer, and carrying this AR-style rifle. He walked across the plaza on Park Avenue into this building at 345 Park Avenue and started shooting. He shot first an NYPD officer who was in the foyer but working security. We then understand that he moved around the building and shot at least 3 other people on upper floors. There are reports coming through that at least 6 people have been shot. One of those is a police officer that was working security there. Of course, information is scarce at the moment. We haven't seen an official police media conference. We should see one in the next couple of hours. There's been a lot of focus on this car that you see right there. It's been in focus for quite some time. I'd say at least the past half an hour. Roads are blocked off in this part of Midtown New York. This car has been inspected and rifled through by a number of police officers for quite some time. It is understood that this man with the AR-style rifle also shot himself, but this is still being described as an active shooter situation in New York City. Let's go live to former FBI agent now, Phil Andrew. Phil, thanks so much for your time. This is not an unfamiliar scene, but not something we've seen in New York for a little while, and it looks like well, we don't know the motivation of this individual yet, but it must have been quite terrifying to see in the early evening someone walk through that plaza with an AR-style rifle in full view, as we understand it.
This is unfortunately something that we experience a lot in the U.S. due to the easy access to military-style weapons. But it is very unusual to see this in the New York, Manhattan area that has a very large police presence and a number of organizations that take violence prevention and security very seriously. What we see here is very likely targeted violence. This person came with a plan to target particular organizations and potentially specific people within that organization.
Phil, can I just ask you, if you could see that picture now of this car, it looks like the agents are running a string over the top of it. Do you know what that would be for?
They're probably looking at this as a potential vehicle related to this incident, and they have to be very careful on how they preserve the evidence, but also there may be additional information and there might be a threat within that trunk. So they're going to be very careful in how they open it and to preserve any evidence, but also maintain the highest level of safety for the officers involved in the search.
Yeah, of course. It was only half an hour ago on this program that we saw live pictures of people running out of the building with their hands up. Obviously, this is very concerning for any families that have workers in that building. But what is the protocol when something like this happens? Because, of course, officers are being called to this kind of situation. They don't know what's going on. They, at the time, don't know whether this person would be operating alone.
Absolutely. And in a department the size of and with the experience that New York City does because of responding to 9/11, having its own counterterrorism teams working very closely with federal agencies, they're going to have a consciousness as they're responding to a crisis like this, that there could be secondary threats, that they could actually be being drawn in to expose themselves to the threat. But that always has to be balanced with law enforcement, first responders, moving very quickly to where they believe the threat exists and engaging it to, one, distract it from causing further injury and attack, but also to engage it and eliminate that threat. So we don't know have a lot of details here yet, but clearly there was a very quick and effective law enforcement response. But you're right, they just don't know what they're going into, and they have to fall back on teamwork, their training, and moving as quickly as they can, but also trying to do that as safely as they can.
Phil, as we talk, we're watching the operation be carried out here. This car, I mentioned that string or a chain being attached to the boot and was run over the car. It looks like police have used that to open the boot. They would have been concerned or had some kind of concern that it would have been booby-trapped, or there could be a chance it would be?
Well, both. We just don't know by looking at this. It could have been that they were unable to get the trunk open without the key. It does look like the hazards are on. So there could be any number of reasons why they were taking this extra precaution. But it looks like they now have it open and are assessing what kind of evidence or additional material might be related to this investigation.
Phil, what happens now? Is it unusual that we haven't heard from police thus far? Of course, this is an active situation there. It doesn't look like everyone has been evacuated from the building. So what happens now? Why wouldn't we have heard from police?
Well, the most important reason is that police are trying to respond to this, secure the environment, and protect people and property, and now that information can be gathered and then shared back, to the command where they could share that with the media. But as often happens with these situations, is that there's always this chaotic moments where police just don't have enough information to share, and they're too engaged in actually mitigating the threat to share it. The most important thing right now is that they're securing people and removing them from the crisis site, working to preserve what potential evidence might exist there. But remember too that we have an active threat here with somebody at large or potentially others at large. The concentration of the police right now must be on controlling that circumstance and making it as safe for everybody. And then they'll move toward sharing what information they can with the general public.
What do you suspect's gone on here, Phil? What do you suspect's gone on here? Does this look like an aggrieved former employee, current employee? I mean, we do have a precedent for these kinds of things in the US, don't we? Although we don't see these corporate shootings very often. Sadly, we see a lot of school shootings and college shootings, but this is a little more unusual.
Well, yes. Well, in fact, workplace violence runs about the same amount as school violence in the United States. But we just don't know the details here. But what we often see when there's a mass targeted attack is that this is someone that has some kind of focused grievance. And it could be attached to potentially a domestic violence situation. They went to this workplace to find some intimate partner that they wanted to cause harm to. There could also be some focus on that organization, some perceived wrong or perception of wrongdoing that they're avenging, or it could be that they had a prior relationship as an employee-employer that they are avenging. But what we know about mass attackers is that they very often are grievance collectors. They tend to be male. They tend to have broken relationships. There is a high level of kind of masculinity, but that is directed negatively and toxically at women. They often abuse animals. They have manifestos. They have shared these grievances with others, and they've probably, in their planning, more recently acquired these weapons after they decided to commit the violence and that they were going to avenge the violence. Then they start making the plan where they start acquiring these weapons. So what you're hearing there is that there is a profile, but there's also a lot of intervention opportunities. And that's why it's so important for law enforcement, community members, and organizations to work very closely in identifying early upstream, left of boom, as we would say in the business, these intervention opportunities, because there is the potential for off-ramping people like this. But most importantly, if we can identify people that are in crisis and trying to access or have access to firearms, we have to deny them access. And this is what we're seeing right here is this playing out. A particular weapon, an assault style, military style weapon, which is what we're hearing the reports on, has been used for a mass attack by someone that probably should never have had access to this gun to begin with.
Phil Andrew, it has been great to get your expertise this morning. We really appreciate your time today.
Glad to be with you.